So thank you all for joining in. We'll start the program titled as Bhakti Life. I hope all of you are able to see the presentation also. We started this Bhakti Life series almost 1.5 months ago when we had completed our level 1 and level 2 Bhagavad Gita programs, just to help spiritual practitioners who have got introduced to the path of bhakti as Lord Shri Krishna establishes in Bhagavad Gita, just to help them deal with day-to-day challenges, practical problems that come our way while trying to apply the principles of Bhagavad Gita. And therefore, just to give you a quick recap of what all topics we have discussed. In the previous month, we had discussed 6 topics as given up on the slide deck. Time management, how do we find time for our spiritual practice, why we do what we do, creating a sacred space, basics of bhakti yoga, principles of freedom, and science of mantra meditation. And in this month, we have had, this is the 3rd topic, this is the 9th episode actually. This month we begin with the topic on simple living and high thinking. And then we had basics of bhakti yoga. And now today we have a topic of overcoming bad habits. And the last topic of this month would be benefits, scientific benefits of rising early. So as you can see with the list of topics that we have, or we have shortlisted for all of you, is to address the problems that we face while trying to walk the path of spiritual life. So to begin with, today's topic is overcoming bad habits. To give you an example, I believe all of us would recognize it's not easy to deal with habits. As they say, habits die hard. To give you an example, it's a very classic example of a story of a thief who decided to go on a pilgrimage with all right intentions. He went along with a group for a pilgrimage, and when they halted, when they came to the site, the sacred place for which they had gone on a pilgrimage, then they halted for a night rest. Everyone went to sleep except for the thief, because it's a time for their awakening. This is the time when they wake up to perform their professional responsibility. In other words, to carry out the job of stealing. So now he's there amidst all the pilgrims. Everyone had come with the right intention to remember Lord, to serve Lord, and to get rid of all bad habits. And here, in the midst of this thing, in the sacred trip, here we have a thief who is struggling with himself. He has a brilliant opportunity right in front of him to steal. Everyone is fall asleep. There is no security. He's right inside the facility with so much luggage and belongings. And that's where begins what we called as a mental dialogue. How many of you have heard or have observed a mental dialogue within yourself? This is a Zoom session, so we'll make it a little interactive. You can respond with raising your hand or replying on a Zoom chat. I hope the chat is open, is enabled like that. So mental dialogue, it actually happens between the mind and the intelligence, where mind is connected, or it talks about the feeling, and where intelligence does the part of the thinking. So what will happen in the case of a thief? How does his mind would speak or react? Mind would say, I'm a thief. This is my profession, and I have the best opportunity now to make fortune. So his mind is tempting him. It's a fantastic opportunity. Whereas intelligence, we're going to talk about the role of mind and intelligence as we proceed ahead. Intelligence does the part of discrimination and decision making. Where intelligence thinks, oh no, I have come to a holy place and I cannot commit such a sinful act here. I should not do it. Now, who wins? That depends on who is more stronger. Just like there is a fight between 2 dogs. If you've ever seen 2 dogs fighting, whoever dog barks louder, longer, consistently, that dog wins. Similarly, is the story with these two sound voices within us. Whichever voice is more stronger, persistent, that voice wins. In a case of a thief who is more habitual to steal, which means his mind is more stronger than his intelligence, which is giving him a right direction, and he comes and he concedes to the whims and the desires of his mind, and he ends up stealing. What's the consequence or what's the result of it? Well, the point is he steals, but because he could not save himself, he was forced to act against his will. As a result, he ended up stealing. But what he did, because he didn't want it to actually steal, but he was forced into it, he went ahead, picked up the luggage, and moved the luggage from here to there and there and there. And like that, he moved the luggage of everyone. And when everyone got up in the morning, everyone shocked, "Oh no, my luggage is missing." Everyone began to scream. And the thief confessed, "Please forgive me. I'm a thief. I came with all good intentions, but my nature, lower nature, was so strong, it forced me to commit stealing. However, I did not steal. I just moved your luggage from here to there. If you look around, you'll definitely find it." So the point is, although the thief knew he should not do it, yet he was so forced and compelled to act. How many of us have an experience similarly? We know the benefits, or we have learned or heard the benefits of waking up early in the morning. We know what are the benefits of it, yet we fail to do it. We find it challenging. Yes or no? Is it a struggle? And like this, there could be many, many other examples where we know the benefits, yet we fail to act it. Other way around, we know the bad effects of it, somehow we are again forced to act. So the problem statement here that we have in front of us is how to deal with past conditionings. And second, how to cultivate near positive conditionings. To give an example, this is another classic story that comes on the subject matter of habit. Some people were, they were traveling on a boat from one side of the river to the other side of a river. And there was one person who just had taken out some coins from his pocket, and suddenly one of the coins slipped from his hand and fell into the river. And as soon as the coin slipped into the river, he immediately jumped into the river to grab his coin. However, after he jumped into the river, he got hold of his coin. He realized he doesn't know how to swim. And now he's screaming, "Please help me, please help me." One of the passengers sitting on the boat gave his hand. He said, "Please, please give me your hand." And the man will not respond. The man who is drowning will not respond. Again, the person on the boat said, "Please give me your hand." Again, the man who was drowning would not respond. Then an acquaintance of a drowning man who was from the same village said, "Sabji, this is a known miser. All his life, he has only known how to take, never to give. I guess you need to change your statement. So rather than saying, 'Give me your hand,' you say, 'Take my hand.'" As soon as this man said, "Take my hand," immediately grabbed him. And 10 other people had to grab him because he was about to pull him into the river also. So point is, how to deal with this past conditionings, just like a case of a miser man, we're talking about it, and how to cultivate good habits. And that will be the subject matter of today's discussion. Before I proceed with the topic here, let me quickly take a little feedback. How many of you feel this is relevant? Can you please raise your hands? Or how many of you are interested on giving up bad habits and learning the art of cultivating good habits? So right now I'm looking at all of you on the screen. If you all can switch on your camera, then give me a raise of hand, then I get to see that we should continue. Oh, we have some young kids also today. Okay. All right, so thank you for affirmation. Your affirmation gives me an enthusiasm to speak forward. Okay, so welcome back again to the subject matter titled as Overcoming Bad Habits, which is the 9th episode for today's discussion. Let's begin with it. Hare Krishna. Can I get a pointer? Every species, whatever you want to call it, is struggling for survival. Let's take an example of a mouse. Although mouse has plenty of options available for it to eat, and the kind of food is available everywhere. Yet when it comes to cheese, mouse becomes restless, right? And it gets tempted, attracted, and finally falls into the death trap and dies getting caught into the mouse trap like that. Take an example of a fish. Although within the seabed, fish has plenty to eat to survive. Yet when a fisherman throws his net or throws his bait tied to the hook, the fish gets caught, attracted to the bait, and dies. So what is the reason for it? To think about it for a quick second, we can say the explanation for this kind of a reaction is they did not knew that it was a trap, and they went to eat because it's their food of survival, whatever you want to call it, fine. However, think about in a case of a man. We have an intelligent human being, and he's caught of a desire trap. Desire trap in the sense, let's say smoking, alcohol, and many other things. And although whatever such things which are dangerous for health, fortunately by the rule of government, comes with a statutory warning, right? For everything. Despite, in the case of animals, they were not aware that it's a trap. In the case of a man, in the case of a human being, he knows, she knows it's a trap, right? Yet, they succumb to it and they die. And it is said there are more deaths after statutory warning. So it is, yet people give into it. So my question to all of you is, what explanation is there to give for such kind of a behavior or a response of a human being? In a case of animal, they didn't know it. In a case of human being, they knew it's a trap, and it was not a necessity for their survival. It's not that if you don't smoke, if you don't drink alcohol, you cannot survive. It's just an additional thing which actually destroys our health. And it is all because of habit. So what is a habit? It is defined as a habit is an acquired behavior or a thought pattern that is performed unconsciously. I'll say that again. Hare Krishna. Can we play it out for our audience here? Vishek, on the TV? Is that possible? Or would it? Okay, then it's not on YouTube, right? So fine, leave it. Then you all can watch it on. So they don't have a big screen here to watch it. If it's not possible, then we'll continue if it's disturbing. Fine. So a habit is an acquired behavior or a thought pattern that is performed unconsciously. So as it is explained, there is a stimuli, and for every stimuli there is a response. What is a habit? When there is zero gap between a stimuli and response, in which it means whenever there is a stimuli, you give an automated response. That is called a habit. In other words, when we form a habit, if it is a bad habit which we have created, we kind of lose the freedom to make the right choice. I say that again. There's a stimuli, and for every stimuli, we produce a response. And habit does what? It actually takes away the freedom to make a choice between the stimuli and response. If it is a bad habit, then actually we lose the freedom to make the right decision and become a victim. To give an example of how habit functions, some visual examples for you to see. Let's take a look. We'll be quick with some examples. Sorry for that. The point is, habits die hard. So an important question to be raised: how a habit is formed. We just gave you this example of, a habit means unconscious response. It just happens like that. So we can create a good habit or we can create a bad habit. But let's take a look of how this whole habit is created. So as Lord Shri Krishna describes in Bhagavad Gita, na jayate mriyate va kadachit nayam bhutva bhavitva na bhuya, which means, the soul does not die. Soul is eternal. It continues from one body to another body. So when a soul enters into a new body, it is entering along with this mind, intelligence, and false ego, which is a subtle body. And it is a subtle body which is a storehouse of all the impressions. You're getting a point? So how habits are created, it all begins with our acquired guna and karma from the previous lifetime. That becomes a starting point that makes or forms the basis of all our initial thoughts and desires. So the starting point is where we left in our previous life, whatever thoughts and desires of how we had behaved in the previous life, all that enters into this, and we continue from there because the mind is still the same, coming from the previous lifetime. Now, these thoughts and desires also gets created in this world, in this lifetime, by object and association. Object here can mean information also, gadgets also, and association means association of individuals, the kind of people we associate with. As it is said, association is contagious. Jaisa sang vaisa rang, as it is explained in Hindi. So accordingly, we cultivate a certain kind of a thought patterns or desire. Just like somebody who wants to learn smoking, you just have to associate with the person who smokes, isn't it? It's but natural a person will start smoking like that. So the thoughts and desires begin from this whole, association we keep. What happens next? From there, when we have already got these desires, then desire fructify into an action. An action results into a reaction. Reaction is of two levels. One at an external level, and other is more of an internal level, which you call as psychic, which means whatever action you perform, it creates an impression wherein there is an hankering to do it more. That is a point, and that is how when you repeatedly perform an action, it becomes an habit, which means just like, let's take an example of a smoker. How does this whole addiction of smoking happens? In the beginning, nobody is born with a cigarette in their mouth, right? It is acquired. It is an acquired habit. And how it happens? It begins to associate with the people who smokes. They encourage him to take a smoke or cigarette. He begins to smoke. He takes a 1 or 2 puff and takes 1 or 2 cigarettes over a span of time. And then being in their association, now he regularly continues to, whenever he's in the association, to smoke. So what happens gradually, whenever next time he sees a cigarette, his hand goes there and picks up the cigarette and pushes it into the mouth and he smokes it. Are you getting a point? Now, earlier when he began to smoke, that time there would be that mental dialogue where the mind would say, oh, you want to be socially acceptable? See, everyone is doing, you should do it. And intelligence may say, don't you see the statutory warning? It says it's dangerous for your health. Finally, depending on which dog is more stronger within you, you may end up giving in or protecting yourself. Imagine you conceded, you got defeated, and now you have started to smoke a cigarette. And that is how it becomes a habit, wherein as soon as a person sees a cigarette pack or an advertisement, he gets the urge to smoke. How many of you have that experience? In the beginning, we feel a sense of a guilt. We feel remorse. But when we continue to do that, you call it a sinful act or a bad habit or bad action, after a while, we don't even feel a remorse. Anyone have that experience? We don't even feel a guilt about it. In the beginning, there's a strong sense of guilt. But when we continue repeatedly doing it, then we don't have a guilt. And that is how it becomes a habit. So every action has a reaction, one on the psychic level, where it further creates the thoughts and desires to do it. And second, depending on what kind of action you have done, it would create a reaction on the physical level in the context of well-being or in the context of punishment. Considering a case of smoking, it will create or anything, temporary pains and pleasures will be created like this. Is it making sense? It's very important to understand this, how this habit is created in day-to-day life. So for this, we have to understand our thoughts plays a vital role, very, very important role. What we think is what we begin to desire, and that's what transforms or results into an action. And that is what Lord Shri Krishna explains in Bhagavad Gita, chapter number 2, and verses 62 and 63. I will not go into too much of details, but give you a quick summary. What Lord Shri Krishna is very interesting. He talks about the psychology of how our thoughts translates into an action. Once again, Lord Shri Krishna defines the science of how our thinking translates into an action. Let's take a look. Lord Shri Krishna says, chapter 2, verse number 62, Dhyayato Vishayan Pumsa Sangasteshu Upajayate Sanga Sanjayate Kamat Krodho Bhijayate. Where in essence, Lord Shri Krishna says, Dhyayato, while contemplating Vishayan on the sense object, Sangas, you develop an attraction for it. Tesu Pajayate, attraction towards that object. Sangat, and from that attraction develops attachment, and from that attachment, which means kama, develops krodha. That if I don't get it, a person becomes angry, so I have to have it. So take a case of a returning alcoholic, which means who have gone through a de-addiction camp, alcohol de-addiction camp, and now he's coming out of the camp, de-addiction camp, he's walking on the street, and he sees the wine shop. And now the mental dialogue begins. It all begins with contemplation. Please mark it for yourself. It all begins with thinking, what we are thinking. That's a very important thing, and that's a key to fix our bad habits and also to create the right habits, what we think. Contemplation, the mind will say, look at that. Doesn't it look good? And then the mind speaks, well, don't you remember how great it used to be when you used to drink your favorite bagpiper or whatever brand? It's nice, you can enjoy it. And that attraction develops into kamaha, which means obsession, where the person says, oh, I cannot live without it. I have to have it. And then his intelligence is talking to him again and again, giving him a warning. Don't do it. Don't you remember what your doctor said? Don't you remember what your family member said? If you drink it again, you might die because of liver failure or whatnot. But he becomes angry and irritated, saying that no, nobody can stop me and I'm going to have it. And then what happens? Krishna says in the 63rd verse, he becomes a victim. Krodhat bhavati sammoha, sammoha smriti vibramaha, smriti brahmasad buddhinasho, buddhinasad pranashyati. From krodha develops delusion. From delusion develops bewilderment of memory. Bewilderment of memory means a loss of memory. Whenever somebody does a sinful activity, there is a suffering that comes along with it. To give an example, when somebody overdrinks alcohol, next morning when the person wakes up, he ends up puking. Either he ends up with a headache and whatnot. So loss of memory means he forgets all the pain and suffering he went in the past. That is what I mean by smriti vibhramaha. Smriti brahmasad buddhinasho, and then intelligence is lost, which means the intelligence which was trying to give him the right advice, now his intelligence is also lost. His mind has become very strong, and finally, as we discussed before, he concedes and he ends up relapsing, falling back, becoming a victim of his desire trap, and again drinking alcohol. And these are the last 4 steps that happen. Delusion, oblivion means loss of memory, stupefaction, stunt, and finally destruction. So my question to all of you here is, how did this all begin? What was the very first step? You may write your answer in the chat if you wish to. How did it all begin? What was the very first step? If we could have taken care of that first step, he would not have become the victim. And yes, the answer is dhyayato. We are thinking, what we are contemplating on is a very, very important thing. Now look at the world around. Literally, our thinking, our contemplation has been hijacked. How many of you agree with this? Yes or no? There is so much bombardment of information on news, on all kinds of sensual objects on our mind, on our senses. We don't even have the ability to think anymore. You look anywhere in the world, there are always sense objects. There are advertisements, billboards, and the biggest object of distraction is a smartphone in our pocket. You open it and you have all kinds of dirty ads which are there to drag or spoil our contemplation. Now, people say there is a crime, there is an increasing rate of crime. There are this issue and that issue. How do you expect to solve the problems when the contemplation and the thinking of a modern day human being is so contaminated that people are scared today to send their kids down from their apartment to the playground? Yes? Have you heard where people have this worry? How many of you had experienced this kind of fear when you were growing up? When you were growing up, did your parents ever had this concern that my boy or daughter is going out to play, his or her life may be in danger? Anyone had that experience? Now, how many of you have noticed that today's parents have that worry? Yes or no? They're so conscious about kahan gaya, kitni der ho gayi, kyon nahi aaya, because of the kind of things that are going on in the today's environment. And that is the reason why more and more people are cultivating bad habits, and there is an increased rate of crime because of contemplation. Somebody was talking to me and telling me about what is that called as Netflix and OTA program, over the air programs, what they call it. What is this online series, right? Web series like that. And such disgusted and such an obnoxious content is shown these days. What do you expect would be the state of mind if innocent people would have to see it? According to a study done in America, on every day basis, on an average, for a child who watches a cartoon program, there are almost 15,000 to 20,000 acts of violence shown in the cartoon serials. This is not an action movie. This is a cartoon serial. And what do you expect? Every week there is a gun violence, right? And most of the gun violence which is done by are the young kids, are by the people who are less than 20 years of age. Something to think about it. Thinking, contemplation is very, very important. What are you thinking will determine your future and will also determine the reaction that you get. So in essence, the process of victimization, the summary of it, it all begins with contemplation, then leads to attachment, obsession, anger, delusion, oblivion, and loss of intelligence, and finally fall down. And when a person repeatedly performs such a behavior, such an action, then it becomes a habit where this even 8 steps would not happen. As soon as there's a stimuli, there's a response to it. So, despite knowing all this ills, or despite being a human being, having a higher intelligence, having a sense of what is right, what is wrong, yet why people fail to cultivate good habits but very easily give in to bad habits? Something very interesting Lord Shri Krishna speaks on this subject matter, ahead of this subject matter, in chapter 3. Let's take a look. In chapter 6, Lord Shri Krishna says, mind is your friend and mind can be your enemy as well. The picture that you see on the left of the screen, or probably behind me, right behind me, is from the last few verses of chapter 3, where Lord Shri Krishna says, subtler than the senses is the mind, subtler than the mind is the intelligence, and the most subtle is the soul. So if we have to control the senses are controlled by the mind, and mind is controlled by the intelligence. And an example is given of a chariot, very beautiful analogy, where you can see the horses are compared to the senses, the reins of the horses are compared to the mind, and the person who's controlling the reins is the intelligence. Imagine if your driver is not trustworthy, where will you end up? And I, as an individual soul, is like a passenger on this diagram, or this is a summary of our existence according to Bhagavad Gita. The Lord Shri Krishna in Bhagavad Gita explains that there are two states, or not two states, there are two functions of intelligence. Please take a look, very important. Intelligence has two roles to play. One is called as discrimination and second is determination. Discrimination is not only information, acquiring information. Discrimination means to understand what is right, what is wrong, and determination means to follow the right. So we all have determination. Unfortunately, today it is misdirected. For those who do not accept God as Almighty, their habits becomes almighty. Real determination is awakened by real determination awakens for those who become steadfast on the spiritual path. What is determination? Determination means ability to desist from the initial nectar of passionate pleasures, which means when you engage in any kind of sinful activities, it gives you immediate sense gratification, right? Why do people smoke? I've asked many people in the past, what do you get? Why do you pay for a smoke? If you like so much to smoke, you can put your mouth to the exhaust pipe of a car or a bike, after you want to smoke, isn't it? I don't mean any offense to it, but isn't it a common sense? You're paying money to smoke. There's plenty of smoke outside anyways. You probably would help in air pollution then if you take that smoke in. Here people are paying money to buy smoke or to create smoke. So I believe some of you might be aware. The common answer they give me is the kick. They get a sense of a high, they get a sense of forgetting their state of misery. So there's a pleasure in it. So determination means to, ability to resist the immediate pleasure. Second, ability to persist in achieving the ultimate nectar of enlightened pleasures. So what it means, we'll talk about it. So this is the two functions of intelligence. Similarly, there are two states of mind, which is called as conscious and subconscious mind. To give an example, again, take a case of a mental dialogue for a smoking habit. When a person sees a smoke or a cigarette, his mind says, I'm an engineer. I should know how to hold a cigar at least. Whereas intelligent thinks, but that's a bad habit. Not good for you. Your parents won't like to see you doing this. You may become addicted to it. Don't get into the wrong track. The mind again says, I think it's fun. Everyone is doing it anyway. I should experience what's life at least once. And anyways, how would my parents get to know? Nobody will get to know. And the intelligence says, but you fool! Why do you hurt yourself by this bad habit? That wastes your money, ruins your good health, and may cause you cancer in the future. Stop it. Don't even dream about it. At this point of time, depending on the association that this person has or he gets, depending on, he will make the decision. If he gets an association of people who are able to guide him, strengthen his intelligence by their words of wisdom, then he will not do it. But somehow, if he get an association of those who encourage him to smoke, he will give in to it. And when he continues to take a bad association, then even this mental dialogue does not happen. It becomes a habit for him. So mind has two states, conscious and subconscious. Conscious states mean where you have the freedom and ability to make a choice. Subconscious mind means it just happens. You getting a point? Subconscious means there is not even thinking involved. It just happens. There is no mental dialogue in an activity which is being done at a subconscious level. So if mind is stronger, mind wins. And if intelligence is stronger, we can resist the temptation. So question comes, it all depends on our intelligence. How do we strengthen the intelligence? We'll focus on it in a solution part. Moving forward, we make habits and then the habits make us. Watch your thoughts, they become your words. Watch your words, they become your actions. Watch your actions, they become your habits. Watch your habits, it becomes your character. Watch your character, it becomes your future. And it all begins with thinking again, thoughts. What kind of thoughts we are carrying? And how do we create thoughts? The thoughts are created by the kind of association we keep. An association is a two types: association of a person and association of information. Association of person, we all understand. Association of information is largely ignored. Association of information means what kind of movies, what kind of news, what kind of TV programs, what kind of fiction, novel, what kind of books we read. This is information. Most of it gives you negative input. Any kind of a movie is more about sensual subject matter. News is always about breaking news, tragedy. And the novels are all about fiction and again filled with sensual content like that. And all this information needs to be replaced by the books of wisdom like Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, Ramayana. When we read and acquire information from that, then we'll find a real life role model for chastity, for bravery, for courage, for good conduct, for valor and whatnot. And accordingly, we cultivate desires. And that's how we cultivate the right kinds of behavior, habits, and that is how we make our future progressive. So good habits are those which enhances our overall experience of life. One of the very important habits is being on time, no procrastination. How many of you struggle with time management? Have a bad habit of procrastinating like that? Speaking softly and gently, waking up early, maintaining cleanliness and all that. These are some good habits, some simple good habits. Similarly, there are bad habits. What are bad habits? The habits which can damage our career, relationship, personal lives without we being even aware of it. Like speaking lies. This is something which people do so often, thinking that others are fool, that they would not understand we are speaking a lie. And by just speaking a lie, we're actually causing harm to oneself, not to others. Being harsh, insensitive to others, and as I said, delaying, poor time management. So some of the examples of bad habits: being late for work or meetings, thinking negatively, gossiping, addiction to TV, and resisting change. Not trying or making an effort to cultivate good habits, and procrastination. So good habits gives you a great future, a progressive life, and bad habits we suffer today, and a very painful future awaits us. So very important to understand how to form a habit. In other words, how we can consciously create good habits. When it comes to creating bad habits, it somehow becomes very natural. We don't have to make an additional endeavor for it, because for most of these bad habits, there is an immediate sense gratification. There's an immediate sense pleasure which is derived from those activities. But for good habits, we don't have immediate gratification. It gradually gives a result. It prepares our future. So that involves certain, I would say, a trick of the game. So how to do it? So I'm going to take a very simple example of reading Bhagavad Gita every day. Let me ask this question to all of you. How many of you would like to have a habit of reading Bhagavad Gita every day for, let's say, 15 minutes, if not much, at least? So those of you who are raising a hand, I believe, are having difficulty with reading every day. Is that correct? Assumingly. Although you have a sincere desire, but time and again we do it, but we fail it. Isn't it? So I'm going to give you some simple steps, but just want to see feedback from everyone. Great. Many of you are showing interest. So let's talk about it. How we can create a habit of reading Bhagavad Gita every day. There are 3 steps described into it. And the same thing holds true for creating a bad habit. I'll not give you an example for a bad habit and talk about a good habit. So first step is trigger. Now what does trigger means? So trigger means to become conscious and aware of what you want to do. You already know that you want to read Bhagavad Gita. Nobody has to tell you, you're aware of it. You want to cultivate the habit. To be able to read Bhagavad Gita every day, first step is trigger. Trigger means something that reminds you that you need to read a book. So a very easy trigger that helps you to remind to read Bhagavad Gita would be to keep a copy of Bhagavad Gita, next to your bed where you sleep, where let's say right now you're working at home, so maybe on your office desk. So when you see Bhagavad Gita again and again all through the day, then you remember, I have to read. The trigger keeps on happening. Okay, find out 5 minutes of time, you have to read. Imagine if you don't have a book in front of you all through the day, the trigger would not happen, yes? The reminder would not happen. So very first thing, keep it within the visible sight. And not only visible sight, within the reach of your hand. It should not be on a bookshelf. Again, mind will say, oh, it's too far off. When I get up, I'll take it. It should be within your reach. All right, the first point is clear, which is visible to you and within your reach. After that, create a routine, which means within your day, find out 15 minutes of time. If in case you're planning to read 15 minutes, so let's take a case of 30-minute reading. If you're planning to read 30 minutes, you can plan out your schedule where once in morning for 15 minutes and later in the evening for 15 minutes, I'm going to read. Add that timing into your schedule. Put a reminder for yourself on your smartphone. And every day, let the reminder come to you on your smartphone that you have to read it. And if you can stick to that routine, let's say in the morning before my office starts at 10 o'clock, from 9:30 to 9:45, I'm going to read Bhagavad Gita for 15 minutes, and another 15 minutes, I'm going to plan for the rest of my day. If you can set that as part of your schedule, and if you continue doing it, many believe if it is repeated for 21 days, then it will become an unconscious competence, which means by default, if you don't do it, you will feel something is missing in your life. Is that making sense? That is the second point. And third is very important. Many of us put a routine, many of us put a reminder. We do it for a few days. After that, we fail to do it. How many have that experience? We put a reminder, maybe for 2-3 days, we are highly enthusiastic, and then we fail to continue doing it. So somehow, subconsciously, we have planned out a trigger. We've also created a routine. But a very important step, that is a third step, is we have not rewarded ourselves for following the trigger and the routine. And the greatest reward and the best reward is to get an acknowledgement or an appreciation from a senior or from a well-wisher who has advised us to read Bhagavad Gita. And how can you get that acknowledgement? Only if you maintain accountability. If you maintain accountability wherein it depends on between you and the relationship of your mentor, wherein every day probably you send a text message saying that I have done this kind of a spiritual practice. Maybe every week, different mentors have different methods where some say every day you can send me a text message. Did you do the spiritual practice or not? Sometimes they have a weekly chart which they ask you to fill in. And when you fill in and when you do it, and then comes an acknowledgement, congratulatory message, that words of praise and encouragement really strengthens us, gives an encouragement. Or sometimes some mentors have a monthly report where you fill in that for a month I did this, and then you get a congratulatory note. When that happens, then we get the renewed inspiration to continue to do it. And when we continue to do it for a certain amount of time, then it becomes a part of our life. Then we don't need routine and reward. Trigger is enough, which means we have to have a copy of Bhagavad Gita. Sometimes even without that, we'll be able to remember what we read the previous days. Is that making all sense to everyone? It's a very 3 simple steps. Remember, trigger, which means within your visible sight, create a routine about it. And third is a reward. And the best reward is to get an acknowledgement, a congratulatory note, or appreciation from a senior. You can only get it when you inform him. So there has to be a culture of accountability or reporting that facilitates this. So don't get scared with reporting on your spiritual practice. Many times we get scared about it. And this is the way we can acquire new habits. And in the similar manner, bad habits are acquired, which begins again with the bad association, and then spending time in that association, that becomes a routine. And like that. So I'm not going into details of it. We'll come to the last part of our discussion. We have spoken about how to create new habits. Let me do a quick recap. We began our discussion with what is habit. how these habits are created. In other words, what's the root cause of it? So we talked about how it depends on our previous karma, and when we do some action repeatedly, then it becomes a habit. That whole cycle in the chart that we are shown, and where we had emphasized on the thoughts. It all depends on our thinking or the desires, and desires get cultivated by association that we keep or the object with which we relate. So there we spoke about the chapter 2, 62nd and 63rd words, the contemplation. With the wrong contemplation, the person ends up doing wrong action. So we have to be very careful of our thinking and contemplation. Then we spoke about, although we know what is right, what is wrong, yet we fail and we end up doing the wrong things. Why? There are two functions of intelligence: discrimination and determination. Discrimination, which discriminates between what is right and what is wrong, and determination to follow the right. And then there are two states of mind: conscious and unconscious. When mind becomes stronger, then we end up succumbing to bad habit. When intelligence is stronger, then intelligence can dictate to mind not to do the bad thing, and then mind follows. And for that, we had given an analogy which is given in Bhagavad Gita, where senses are compared to horses, mind compared to the reins, intelligence is to the driver, and soul as the passenger. So it is intelligence who is controlling the mind and senses. And when intelligence becomes stronger, then we can control and even break through our bad habits. And now we come to the last segment, how to deal with bad habit. And prior to this, we just talked about how to create good habits precisely, that we're focused on. So how to deal with habits that we've already cultivated. It has become a kind of an addiction, and now we want to give it up. How to do it? So the things that I'm going to talk about here, some would be easy for us to give up. And for some habits, it will require some time and prolonged effort. If in case you have a pen and paper for yourself, let's give you 30 seconds or maybe 45 seconds, wherein you can just write down some bad habits that you would like to work on. If you have identified those bad habits, then the solution that I'm going to give you right now will make more sense. Is that okay? Let's take maybe a one minute, where you can write down habits in two parts: mild bad habits and serious bad habits. Mild bad habit would be something being lazy, that's a mild bad habit. And strong bad habit or serious bad habit would be committing, sinful acts, speaking a lie, something like that. You can divide a line and write down a few things for yourself. And then we'll look into the solution. It will help you to relate. Hare Krishna, Hare. When you all have written down this, you can, maybe just give me a thumbs up. Tell me you're ready, then I'll proceed ahead. So how are we gonna deal with bad habits? How do we fix it? So we're gonna talk about a formula. It's a 3-step formula. Hare Krishna. To break down the walls of bad habit, to find ultimately the freedom. And the 3-step formula is awareness, second is avoidance, and third is replacement. What does awareness means? Let's take a look at the step 1. Awareness means to have a clear understanding and knowledge about the bad effects of the bad habits. So as I said, there are some habits, bad habits could be simple, have mild consequences, just like biting nails, wearing an unclean dress, laughing at inappropriate times, oversleeping, too much gossiping, etc., etc. And there are some which have serious, which means grave consequences. For an example, considering some example, let's say smoking. It is said that 400,000 people die in the US alone because of smoking. It's a serious bad habit. Alcohol, 40 million Americans are seriously abused alcoholics. and 275,000 are seriously injured due to drunken driving. This is before COVID, by the way, In the last 1.5 years, there probably would not be any much case because of drunken driving. Then gambling. It is explained that $250 billion are spent on gambling per year. And 93 million people a year go for gambling. And it's actually those who get addicted to it, they lose everything, literally. It's a very, very serious problem. Meat eating, single most cause of heart disease is animal fat ingestion. 30% of all cancers can be prevented by giving up meat eating. And another is illicit relationships. Every year, 3 million, which means 30 lakh teenagers are infected with STD. Some startling and shocking statistics. This is only for America, by the way. So Lord Shri Krishna says, sense pleasures are temporary. So we're talking about awareness, to be very aware, to be very clear of the consequences and what it is all about. Krishna says, 5th chapter, verse number 22, Ye hi samsparsha ja bhoga dukkhayo evate adi antavant kaunteya nateshu ramate buddha. Ramate buddha, those who are enlightened and intelligent being. Buddha means intelligent. Ramate means enjoy. Nateshu ramate. They do not enjoy. In what? They do not enjoy samsparsha ja bhoga with the sense objects. They do not try to fulfill the desires or the whims of the mind, because they know the more we engage in sense gratification, the more it gives birth to dukkha. Dukkha yoni evate, it only gives birth to misery. First of all, when we don't get it, we are miserable. Even after you get it, we again become miserable, because the happiness attained from it is very, very short-lived and temporary. So that's the first thing, awareness. Step 2 is avoidance, wherein we have to keep a distance from the sense objects. And keeping a distance from the sense objects has its own advantages. We already discussed about association. So things which reminds us which can lead us to bad habit, or which can lead us into a wrong action, is what we need to keep an avoidance. We need to avoid it. And let me give you one scientific study or an example of it.
Okay, sit in that chair. All right, here's the deal. Marshmallow for you. You can either wait, and I'll give you another one if you wait, or you can eat it now. When I come back, I'll give you another one, so then you'll have two. But stay in here and stay in the chair till I come back, okay? All right. I'm gonna go do something and then I'll come back.
It smells yummy. It smells really good.
So it's up to you. You can have it now or you can wait. Okay? I'll be back. Stay in the chair, okay? Okay. All right, so I'm gonna leave and then I'll come back, okay? So you can either eat it right now or you can wait. Either way, okay? Okay. How'd you do? Did you do good? You did? Yeah. You wanted to eat it, didn't you? Yeah. So did I tell you to give you another one? Okay, now you can have both. You need them.
When they did the study, they found out the kids who were able to control their senses, restrain and refrain, when they grew up, they became a far much more successful in their life, had a more progressive life than those who very easily gave in to their sense desires. It's a scientific study. And we gave you an evidence from Bhagavad Gita, also 5th chapter, verse number 22 for that. So, avoidance, awareness, the consequences and the rewards if I don't do it. And that leads us to second step of avoidance. And now we come to the Krishna quotes about it. Fine, we'll go for the next. And now the third step, that is replacement. So avoidance, awareness, avoidance. And now we need to replace those activities with something else so that we are not attracted to those habits again. So Krishna in Bhagavad Gita says, Vishaya vinivartante niraharasya dehina rasovarjam rasoprasya param drashtva nivartate. Param drashtva nivartate. By cultivating a higher taste, we will naturally give up the bad habit or a bad taste. What we need to do, what we need to focus, more than giving up bad habits, we have to focus on creating good habits. I'll say that again. This is another trap. We become so conscious of our bad habits. The more we think about bad habit, actually we end up more engaging into it. Have you experienced that? If you more think about your bad habits, you become more tempted to do it. The best way is not to think about that. Keep yourself busy, focus on creating good habits. So we have already given you a cue or a clue about how to create a habit for reading. Similarly, you can create a habit for hearing, regular chanting, offering Krishna Prasadam or offering bhoga to Krishna like that. And like that, we'll be able to develop higher taste and we'll gradually lose the taste. And I can tell you from my own experience, and I believe all of you would have that experience, as we accepted the right habits, right practices, gradually the bad practices went away automatically. How many have that experience? We didn't have to force. For example, those who eat non-vegetarian, once they take to the spiritual practice of chanting of the holy names of the Lord, reading of Bhagavad Gita, attending our regular programs like this, how and when they stop eating meat, even they don't realize. Although before it seems like, oh, how would I live my life without eating meat? But suddenly one morning they wake up and they don't feel even a little desire to eat meat. They in fact feel disgusted. How can I kill an animal for my taste? And like that, the bad habit goes away. So some of the clues on how to say no to bad habits, triple S formula: sustain and abstain. Strive bad habits, which means give up the association of bad people and bad objects. Because of that, we begin to think. Remember thinking? And that's how we engage in bad. Second, supplement good habits. Sustain with good association and good objects. Sustain through introspection, self-correction. So replace the bad people and the bad objects with the right association and right things in our life. And third, stay away. Stay away from tempting environment and association. Be very conscious. Write down very clearly on paper what tempts my mind and senses. And if it is, let's say, movies, let's say things up on internet, then I guess we should not be accessing internet privately. It should always be in public domain. To give you an example. Similarly, if it is something, let's say, a favorite non-vegetarian restaurant right at the corner of the street, make sure you take another route to go outside rather than that route. Something like that. I'm just giving you some examples for it. Another approach, change your attitude, behavior, and thinking, which is called as change your tab. thinking, attitude, and behavior. How to do so? Simple formula. First, change your attitude. How we change our attitude? We have to accept responsibility of our life. For the habits that I have picked up, for the careless indulgence, and for picking up the wrong company. We have to change our thinking to fix the behavior. How do we change our thinking? First, this habit is nectar in the beginning, but is poison in the end. We need to be aware of it. How did I get into this habit trap? What can I do to diffuse it? I refuse to let this hook me. Now I will give up bad company. I will replace with good company. So this thinking, right thinking has to be established. The right set of desires have to come in. Then only we can give up the bad habits. And last, change your behavior. How do we change our behavior? There is a reactive behavior and there is a responsible behavior. Reactive behavior means there is no thinking. We don't take responsibility of our life and we just act on our whims, just like an animal does. Whereas responsible living means for every stimuli, before I respond, I carefully go through the list of my choices. And after carefully analyzing my choices, I pick the right choice and then I give my response. So like this, we can move from the state of unconscious incompetence, which means bad habits, to the state of conscious incompetence, which means now we are aware of our bad habit, gradually to the state of conscious competence, where we are thoughtfully creating good habits, and finally to the fourth stage, where our good habits becomes unconscious competence. We act in the right way, even unconsciously, and that is how we create a new I or new self like that. Why are the bad habits so difficult to break? The reason is the cognitive scripts. These are the unconscious and automatic thoughts that we have when we encounter any situation. And that is why this bad habits becomes very difficult to replace. So how do we deal with? We have already discussed, reiterating this principle again. We have to change our scripts, mental scripts, which means as soon as we see a tempting object, our mind wants to grab it. So we have to change the scripts written in our mind. How do we change the scripts? First of all, we have to understand from where do we get the scripts. It's from the books we read, the kind of movies we watch, the kind of music we listen, and the kind of friends we keep. I'm reiterating the point of association of people and information. Understand by these association, we create mental scripts, and that's how we fall trapped to our bad habits. We need to change these things, replaced by the right association, right people, right information, and that's how what we give in is what will come out. When we feed in the right information, the right kind of behavior will come out. And if nothing works, for those habits which are so deep rooted, we are not able to really deal at our own effort, then comes the step 4, that is praying. And the power is prayer is such, when prayer goes up, which means when we make a prayer, then blessings come down. Oh Lord, give me the courage to change the things which can and ought to be changed, the serenity to accept the things which cannot be changed, and the wisdom to know the difference. You can please write down this prayer and stick it on the wall where you sit and study, maybe at your office desk. You keep reminding yourself and keep praying, my dear Lord, please give me the courage to change things that I cannot, and the wisdom to know, or the serenity to accept the things which I cannot change. And ultimately, an assurance from Lord Shri Krishna, Ananyas chintayantu mam ye jana parupasate tesham nityabhyuktanam yogashemam vahamiham. Those who always worship me, follow the instructions of Bhagavad Gita, who strive to follow the path, right path. Krishna says, Yogashemam vahamiham. I protect what they have and I empower them with the right kind of skill set and the intelligence to make the right decisions. So Krishna assures that in Bhagavad Gita, if we are sincere in our attempts to practice spiritual culture, to bring about change in our life, and with a prayerful attitude, if we approach to the Lord, then Krishna would give us the strength. And with that, we come to the conclusion for today's discussion, wherein we discussed what are habits, how are the bad habits created, two functions of intelligence, discrimination and determination, understanding the conscious and the subconscious mind. Then we talked about how to form a habit, trigger, then routine, and then reward. Very important. We do trigger and routine, but we fail to do reward. Please make sure you have a reward also set in. And then how to say no to bad habits. With that, we conclude for today. I hope this discussion was of some help for all of you. With that, we conclude for today. Thank you all for attending in and for your kind attention. And kindly excuse me, we went 15 minutes a little extra on the time. So in case if anyone has any questions or any doubts to clarify, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Is it okay coming? Oh, looks like at the last minute we lost internet connection. So I was just making a point. Thank you all for joining in. I hope this presentation made some sense and could give you some clues for how to bring about self-improvement. And excuse me for me taking 15 minutes extra of your time. So in case if anyone has any questions or any clarification, maybe you can raise your hand and our co-host here, Abhishek Prabhu, would call out your name and will give you the right to unmute. Hare Krishna.
So the first hand raise is from Manju Mataji. Manju Mataji, you can unmute yourself and you can ask question.
Done words.
I just wanted to know about this change SHARE, set responsibility. Could you just quote some example, like connected?
Accepting responsibility means there has to have a desire to bring about a change. To give a simple example of waking up early in the morning, we need to identify this is my responsibility, it is my life, and I need to take charge of it. Unless I become responsible in my own life for my own well-being, no change can happen. You know, let's say, for example, let's say you are a mother, for an example, and you have your son or a daughter. You can chastise them, you can chase after them, but you know that very well. Unless they realize the importance of what you're saying, they will not do it. Under your fear and under your pressure, they may in front of you do it half-heartedly, but still they will not do it willfully. Yes or no? So that's a point of understanding our responsibility. If I need to change myself, it's ultimately my responsibility. I need to take responsibility of my life, responsibility of my decisions. I own it. And based on how I act today is what I'm creating my future. And the opposite of is irresponsible living, where people give in to bad habits very easily. And you will see those who give in to bad habits very easily, they're least bothered about their future. Have you noticed? They don't care anything about their future. You know? So that is what irresponsible living. Responsible living means where they are conscious about your future, you're conscious about your present, you're conscious about people around you, how your behavior affects everyone. That is what it means by responsible living. I hope it helps you understand. Right? Hare Krishna.
Next hand is raised from the Yogesh Prabhu. Yogesh Prabhu, you can unmute yourself and you can ask question. If possible, you can switch on video also.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Great enlightenment session. Just tell that 2 years back, and I suddenly stopped alcohol, and 2 years I don't feel like consuming it. 4 months back, suddenly I stopped eating meat. I thought one day like why should an animal suffer because for my taste. These two vices I could give up. No, I'm not able to give up smoking. That is a big hurdle for me. somehow I don't know. I tried it few times, giving it up. Even last year lockdown, this year's lockdown. But somehow, I get that fascination about smoking.
The
I
kick.
don't know, anyone guide me how to get rid of this.
How did you got rid of alcohol? You have already succeeded, not once, twice. And you have all the opportunity to succeed for the third time also. You have given up things which are not that easy to give in. So first of all, you need to congratulate, and we all need to congratulate you for your accomplishment. accomplishment. So my question to you is, what did you do that you gave up drinking?
I thought like it is, ruining my family life, my business life, my personal life, and ultimately that will lead me only to disaster. So that day I thought it is poison for me.
So
I
you
said, okay,
became
I should.
aware. You had cultivated awareness. As we talk
Yes.
about three-step formula for giving a bad habits,
Yes.
awareness.
Yes.
And after awareness, you probably would have followed avoidance, not to be part of any such forum where alcohol is being served. I am tempted to, right?
Yes, I also go to such forums purposely and check my patients also. Like our friends, we go to Goa and all. There also I avoid taking alcohol when the other group and everyone is taking. So there I succeed. But even meat also, I used to love meat. But 3 months, 4 months back, I completely stopped it. But somehow smoking, I'm not aware about the ill effects of smoking on my health, and so I'm not able to give it up.
So one approach of this, as we discuss, awareness. Uh, awareness wise, we have it, but we don't have the realization right now. Like you got realization about the alcohol bad effects. So you made a choice, decision. That was called responsible living. We decided to change your thinking, attitude, and behavior. We talked about tab. So in case of a smoking, if it is becoming a challenge, theoretically you may know it, but realization is not there. So you should follow the second step, which means avoidance. Avoidance refers to don't put yourself into a situation where meat is served or you're reminded of meat. First thing. Second thing, it will also not be successful if it is not followed by the third step, that is replacement. Now, meat gives you a taste, for which you are hankering. There has to be replaced by food items which give you equivalent or a better taste. So, one on a very gross level, vegan restaurants, I don't know in India, but in the West, we used to have it. They would serve out almost look alike, almost same in taste, vegan items, which actually not a meat, but made of soya bean, made of wheat. I forgot the name. Different kind of items they would have. One thing is that. Second thing is take to the process of spiritual culture. Chanting of the holy names of the Lord strengthens our intelligence. And second thing is of reading of scriptures like Bhagavad Gita, attending programs like this, which fills in your mind with right kind of thoughts and right kind of aspirations, which further gives you strength how to deal with it. So when we continue with this kind of a practice, gradually two things will happen. Your intelligence will become stronger to take control of your life. And secondly, your desires to engage on those things will become reduced or will be less because your awareness will increase about the ill effects. So when you keep up in the association, gradually you will find yourself getting it. So like I spoke when I was talking about how to give up bad habits, some things you'll be able to give up easily. There will be something which will require an effort. So for you, alcohol and other things maybe you were able to give up, but maybe smoking requires an effort. And when nothing works, praying is what we need to. I would request you, please hear to the last half an hour of our program, what we did today. Probably they will have recording uploaded within a day or two. And meditate on what we have discussed on the last half an hour. Make some notes of it and create a plan for yourself, how to deal with this problem. And I'm pretty sure you'll find a way. It really helps, actually. It does it. Srila Prabhupada did it to the hippies. They were much more addicted to such things that even you can ever be. Such was the hippie audience then. And they all could do it by the strength of the chanting of the holy names and the strength of the saintly association of Srila Prabhupada. So
Yes, I pray every day to the Lord that when I can leave alcohol and meat, why I am not able to leave the smoking. So please help me leave this also.
yeah, so Lord is testing you. How sincere is your desire? So patience is needed and do the right thing. Please stick to the chanting of the holy names. Try to chant attentively and continue to be part of such kind of sanghas, association, where you find like-minded people and where you get an affirmation and confirmation that people are happy without doing these things. Because when you go outside, we feel like unless I do that meat eating intoxication, I cannot be happy. You have to come in the association of devotees to understand people are actually happy without doing these things and surviving. So that's an important thing. Thank you, Yogeshi. Hare Krishna.
Next, there is a hand raise from Shushmitaji. Shushmitaji, you can unmute yourself and you can ask question.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Actually, what the thing is that I have a habit of getting angry, and I let myself be impacted by someone who tries to hurt, or somebody who says hurtful things. I get impacted too soon, and then I think I also can't control my reactions, which is where I feel that I need to improvise, because I need to control my reactions, control my emotions, probably let go at that point of time. But I cannot do that, and this not only happens with outside. It's like outside it's still controlled to a great extent, but it's more so in the household, with the family members, with my own daughter. Sometimes I get stressed out with everything going on around me, that I tend to over react, or sometimes get too frustrated or angry or something like that. So how to get rid of that? It's very difficult. I have tried, but it's not working out.
So there are a couple of things to it. First of all, the cause of your response are the mental scripts or the impressions. As we discussed in the beginning, how we react today has a lot to do with our upbringing, maybe what we have done in this life, or maybe of the past life. There's a stimuli and you have a response for it. The kind of response you're giving is not necessarily everyone reacts like that. So why in your case you're having a response like this? It all depends on your mental scripts, impressions which have been created. Different people for different things react differently because of their impressions created in a certain manner. So that's the first thing. So we cannot do much about it, what has been created. What we need to do is replace all those impressions by the right impressions. Therefore, I'll tell you the kind of a spiritual culture Srila Prabhupada gave us is so profound that within a very short span of time, anyone, if he takes to this process, can make a tremendous progress. To give you some example, Srila Prabhupada gave us a culture of getting up early in the morning, start your day, first thing in the morning, take a beautiful darshan of the deities, which is very purifying to the senses and the consciousness. Then you attend the Aarti. Then there's a Mangal Aarti, there's a singing, then there's a Tulsi Aarti, there's a Nasim Aarti, where there's a prayer, heartfelt prayer is made to the Lord. So you begin your day with a prayer, you begin with your day engaging all your mind and senses, absorbing spiritual sound vibration. Then you see the Lord getting worshipped and whatnot. And then there is a 2 hours meditation, chanting time. Then there is another Aarti, then you have a class, then you have Krishna Prasadam. If somebody who has such charged and absorbed his early morning hours, almost 4 to 6 hours of his morning hours in such a kind of a potent spiritual environment, it's just a matter of time when we'll quickly replace all of our mental scripts. So for some of us, I understand for those who are in a household, matter, those who are in a family life, for them, it would be difficult, to take out this much time. But this is where we need to engage our mind and energy, observe ourselves. One thing that happens, why we don't, or why we fail to give up, or why we struggle with it, we have a very limited touch with the spiritual energy. We have a lot of connection with the material energy. You understand spiritual energy, material energy. Spiritual energy means being in touch with the divine, with the Lord, Supreme Lord. We hardly have much, or we hardly give any time for doing spiritual activity. Most of the time, we are struggling in this world. Where struggle in this world means we all have so many desires, and we are trying those desires to get fulfilled. Those desires are not getting fulfilled, so person anyways frustrated, and there are certain situations which are created around him, which further frustrates the person. So dealing with anger is a subject matter in itself, and the one way it can be resolved is by increasing our spiritual content in our day-to-day life. Please try to increase that amount of time that you spend on this. I hope you understand that there is a homework need to be done by yourself. You're getting a point? There needs to be a transformation that need to be brought within myself. The state of happiness and the state of misery is within us, and the freedom lies with you, with I, to choose what I want to do it. And to exercise that freedom, to actually be happy, we need to increase our spiritual content. We need to increase our association with the divine energy of the Lord, which means practice spiritual life. And you will experience in a short duration that you undergo transformation. And you're not the first one. I'm not the first time speaking this. I have myself undergone, and I'm going transformation right now. And there's so many people in the history of mankind, in the ancient past and the recent past, who have gone through the transformation. There was Ratnakar. He was a thief, highway robber. There was, what was the name of the hunter? Mragari, the hunter. His happiness of life was to kill the animal half dead. And seeing the animal struggle and die was his happiness. That Mragari became a great saint when he took to spiritual culture. We are already saint in front of Magari. We are not that bad. So how easily it is for us. Question is, are we serious about taking spiritual culture? All right, Mother?
Yes, thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Next, there was a hand raise from Surajji. 1 minute. Yeah. Suraj, you can unmute yourself and you can ask question. Not Suraj, sorry, Anurag. Yeah.
Hare Krishna.
I have two bad habits. First is I want to eat, but I'm not hungry, but just want to eat something. So I think that this is a bad habit and I want to give up. Then when I go to canteen, I think no, I don't have to eat and collect that money and donate for some good reasons like Gita donation and things. That will okay. I'm now not eating extra. But another bad habit is overthinking or some past experience thinking. And while chanting, this experience come in mind continuously. While 1-2 rounds go okay while chanting, but after 3-4, as the number round increases, the thinking increases, and after completing 16 round, I come to know that okay, I'm just thinking about my past life. I completed my rounds, but I'm thinking about my past life. So how to overcome that? First bad habit is physical. I can stop thinking, okay, I don't have to eat. I just want to save money for Gita donation. Okay, that can be happen. But thinking in mind, it is very difficult. Please help me.
Yes. So going with your second question first, dealing with the overthinking. Overthinking arises because of restlessness of mind. Restlessness of mind is due to mode of passion. So Anuragji, you have to little study about your own life and see, looks like because your mind is overthinking and too restless, is probably your day goes in a lot of passionate activities. So one thing would be for you as well as for those who are still present attending it, those who want to seriously practice, and I believe we still have semi-lockdown going on, everyone is working from home, I would request all of you, if opportunity arises, if you can manage, every morning at 4:30 we have a Brahma Muhurta program where we discuss for 15 minutes, we offer prayers, Sanskrit prayers for 5 minutes, and then for 10 minutes I speak on the subject matter of how to do meditation properly, in other words, how to chant properly. And after that, around 4:45 or 4:50, we conclude, and then we chant. Chanting is not streamed live, but at least this program of 15-20 minutes is streamed live on Zoom every morning. So that is one thing that I would say, Anurag, if you can bring into your life, to wake up early in the morning and to chant early in the morning, that is very, very potent and powerful, which will help you gradually reduce your restlessness. Second is to look into your day, how your day goes, what all you're doing. It's a subject matter in itself where you have to see how much and how many different ways you can cultivate more of goodness. To give a short answer, sleep early, wake up early would be the first step to do it. And if possible, also chant in the association. That helps. If in case you are alone, living alone, there is nobody else, then you can switch on Srila Prabhupada's japa, chant along with that. That will help. Anurag have something to say to that. Anurag, go ahead, unmute.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. I arrive early at 4 o'clock and then start chanting. I know about this session early Brahma Muhurta chanting, but I have mobile. I don't have laptop. When I open the session, I have to connect to internet, and lot of messages come that will distract me. That's why I'm not joining that session.
Yeah, that's another challenge. So I don't know what to do about it. Fine. There is no way to disable applications for the time being. I believe there are applications called as app lock or something, by which you can lock down applications for a certain duration of time. Like in our Brahmachari ashram, we have this parental lock app with which we put restrictions like that. I don't personally use smartphones, so although I kind of make decisions about all the security, but I have a team for it. You can see there is app lock or something with which you can lock down applications, certain application for a certain duration, and you have a choice to enable only certain applications. So anyways, that's a technical difficulty. So that you have to figure it out. I believe you're more technically sound than I am, probably. So coming back to subject matter, but more of goodness is what it counts. We have to, in the association and have Prabhupada japa to be played out. Sleep early, it will help. Maybe you have started doing it in a short while or something, but if you continue to do it, you will feel a change. You will experience a change actually. It's not easy to give up certain things overnight. Although we want success overnight, but success often doesn't come overnight. Certain things, we have created it as our nature. And it takes time to mold it. It takes time to change it, because we have been doing for a long, long time. So certain things require time. That's the reason when I talked about change of habit, how to say no to bad habits, I said two things. Some things you can do it easily. Some things will take time. I made that categorical point because certain things, certain habits and attitudes take a time, take a consistent effort. And consistency rewards gradually, okay? So I wish my sincere best to you, that hopefully, Krishna willing, you'll be able to win your battle. And it's a battle for, I believe, everyone to deal with the restless mind. It's not an easy thing, but we make an effort. Yes, Anurag?
Reward we get from seniors. So we are expecting that from you. Can you
Yes,
do some
yes.
mentorship to us?
Fine. Anurag, you can contact me later on and we can do that. Okay. If you know any of the admins of ours, you can contact them. They can give you my contact number. You can talk and we can work that out.
I have a contact number over you.
Oh, just message me then. We'll talk. Okay. We'll do that.
Okay,
Thank you, Anurag.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So Is there
There's
any
one
more
last
questions?
question. All
Okay.
questions are. Surajji wanted to ask because of his poor network connection, he's not able to ask. So he just typed in the question. The question goes like this: how to keep that stimuli consistent of seeking the long-time pleasure and progressive life rather than immediate gratification? Prabhuji, it is because due to I have more emotional inclination and having mind-friendly attitude instead of intelligent.
Say the last statement again.
I have a mind-friendly attitude instead of having intelligent-friendly attitude.
Suraj.
Suraj.
Again, to deal with such things, for example, those of you are bachelors, if in case Suraj is bachelor, we created a facilities like you can call it as a youth centers where the like-minded youth comes together. You can call it as a modern day Gurukul. Right now, where I'm sitting is one such youth center in Hinjawadi, where we have working youth staying together and where we follow the principle of Gurukul. Literally like an ashram life. And I would say those of you who are bachelor, I would recommend and request them, please come and stay with us maybe for a week. Before lockdown, I used to do it a week-long seminary where the bachelors would come and stay with us for a week, and I would create a whole week-long engagement for them, including you will have your work hours, which means you can continue with your professional life. Outside of professional life, I'll create a schedule so that you feel like you're living in a monastery, where it will include early morning sessions, evening session, yoga sessions, musical instrument session. Then you'll have early to bed program, and then sleep early, wake up early, like that. These kind of experiences help a lot. So this is something I would say to Suraj and anyone else who are bachelors to consider and think about it. And yes, mothers, this is only for Prabhus, for men. Unfortunately, we don't have any such facility for mothers. It's just difficult, actually. We used to have it, or we have still a mothers forum where mothers come together and study together. But this kind of a facility is not there because to take care of the mothers, you need a mother. And that is not easily work out, But for the man, we do have a facility. And I guess for mothers, it is a little easier as compared to the men. They are comparatively more sound, and I would say more dharmic than men, less restless. Men needs a little more training. Okay, so fine, all right. So those of you bachelor, you can contact me directly, or you can contact any of our hosts, and you can plan with them to come and stay with us for a week. But I would prefer if you let me know, a little bit ahead of time, so I manage my schedule. It should not be that I'm not here when you plan to come. And whenever you plan to come, be assured your professional life will not be disturbed at all. You will have your space and time to do, and we have enough facility for you to sit and work. Hare Krishna. Sudhirji, what's your question? Sorry, I couldn't meet you when you came that day. I was really, really tired, and I hope to see you again when you come back to Pune, okay?
Sure. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. As you said, for youth, you have a program like that. Can you have a program of like that for Vanashram?
Vanaprasthis, yes, we'll give you special consideration to Sudhir Prabhu. You are youth among youth, no problem.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Right? Okay. So, anything else, Abhishek Prabhu?
That's it, Prabhuji. No more hand raised. Yeah.
So, who all we have today? Can I just have you, if in case you're comfortable, switch on a camera? So, at least get to know who all we had. Oh, Chandani ji, nice to see you. Good. We had interacted once in a while. Akshay. Okay, I remember I spoke recently, right? We spoke recently. Some, I believe, I'm seeing for the first time, probably like that. Oh, of a friend from Mizoram, Sikkim, Fallen Soul, right? We also spoke Guwahati. Okay, like that. Okay, some probably okay. Nirala ji, yeah, I remember Nirala. Okay, so fine. And there are some others. Maybe of course, Rajalakshmi. I know Mataji. Oh, Mataji from Kerala, right? We have interacted before. And okay, so thank you all for joining in. Somebody said something about hospitalization. I just saw a comment said hospitalization. Oh, Chandni is typing in. Oh, okay. I hope is she doing okay now? Can you allow everyone to unmute in case they want to?
Krishna Prabhuji.
Who is speaking?
Jai Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Yes, Mother Chandni. Is she okay now, your daughter?
Yeah, she's doing fine, but still she's under observation.
Okay. We'll pray to the Lord. Things become okay soon. All right.
Yes, I talked with Puja Bhakti Mataji.
Okay.
I'm in touch with her.
Okay, good. Hare Krishna.
I missed many of the sessions. Today only I was able to attend. Even in the morning, not able to attend Srimad Bhagavatam because again from 9, her classes, she have online class. So again, I'm not able to attend.
Oh, okay. I
But
believe,
I'm hearing it.
yeah, the morning Bhagavatam class is played every evening at 7 o'clock on the YouTube channel.
Yes, Prabhuji, I'm following that.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Thank you all, everyone, for joining in.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. Dandavat pranam Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. Wonderful understanding we have got. Thank you.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Srila Prabhupada
Hare Krishna.
ki jai.
Thank you, Prabhuji, for solving everybody's question patiently. It is so we see very less kind of speaker like you, who gave sufficient time for question
Probably
and
I am
answers.
the most idle speaker among all. Maybe that's why. All right. Thank you, Digvijay ji. Hare Krishna. Have a wonderful evening to all of you. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Yeah.